The threat of bioweapons is always a big deal. However, Chris Redfield is even bigger. And you know what else is big? The many enticing atmospheres of Resident Evil. Horror is more than just gruesome violence and cheap scares. It can be all about the ambience and vibe you get when exploring uncharted territory. And Resident Evil is all about that uncharted territory. So you gotta explore these places yourself and let your imagination guide you. For this video, I'll go over some of my favorite locations from throughout the series, and my commentary style. Sit back, relax, grab your green herbs and smoke them, and join me as I talk about Code Veronica, RE5, Revelations 2, and RE6 with a little bonus mention of Dino Crisis. First up, Code Veronica X. This game only has two major locations, that being Rockfort Island and then the Umbrella Antarctic Base. Don't worry though, because both these locations are filled with distinct areas, and you get to backtrack them as the peanut buster Chris Redfield himself. The atmosphere and music for Code Veronica X is simply incredible. This is the only entry on this video where I'll have to use other footage since I had it on my PS2, and of course, capturing cutscenes from the other games, yada yada. Whenever I think of Code Veronica, I think about that ominous long staircase that seems to go up forever, as Claire gradually sees more of that giant, deteriorated hanging doll in Alexia Ashford's castle. The musical piece that accompanies the scene is amazing, a nice blend of uncanny and classical as the fixed camera inches upwards the more you progress. There's one thing that made Code Veronica distinct from past RE games. It's that the fixed camera isn't so fixed as it can pan depending on the room, and if you're going up or down, much like Dino Crisis at times. This feature helps build the tension since the lighting in Code Veronica can be much darker than its predecessors. That giant doll says a lot about the mind of the Ashford twins and how they are unnatural themselves since they're, clones. Keep in mind that the Minton hanging doll, since there's a homage to it in another Claire game we'll talk about later in this video. The Ashford Castle on Rockfort Island is technically the first castle we visit in the series, but it still stands on its own with the puzzles and how it's surprisingly not in complete disarray despite all the bioweapons lurking around. There's that playroom with the ant puzzle and music box that is hauntingly alluring as well. Then you get the more industrial, military-themed areas of Code Veronica. The entirety of Rockfort Island is full of open and closed spaces to explore, with the darkness of night hiding danger at seemingly every corner. Giant worms, zombies, dogs, albinoids, the Master Bader one-handed tyrants, and of course, Big Daddy Albert Wesker. Oh, and the Mr. Nubs tyrant is there too. This, along with the already deserted Antarctic base, create a feeling of isolation since these facilities full of military soldiers straight up got wiped out, and now you're facing their undead remains. I mean, for crying out loud, Claire is like a college student and she's surviving all this. What a beast. There's something about being stranded in the blistering cold of a desolate continent in that Antarctic base that brings a whole nother level of fear into Resident Evil. And sure, there's still a Spencer Mansion clone in this game, somehow even Mr. Trevor made one for the Antarctic base, but the fact that the Umbrella Antarctic base is hiding so many dark secrets adds to the mystery of evil hiding beneath all the snow and ice. It's like it's just waiting to be unleashed. When it comes to the enemies of the Antarctic base, however, it's full of the worst hunters in the series, as there's poison ones as well, but you can't really tell because of how dark it is, and they have those little robot drones that tell the hunters where to attack. Giant groping plant vines, Mothra's unwanted babies, and giant goddamn spiders that made me wish Godzilla himself was there to nuke it. Oh, and Nosferatu is here too, but he's not flickering the lights this time. Nosferatu is just a mutated Edward Ashford. I gotta say, finally seeing an Umbrella founder in the undead flesh was pretty cool. I bring up all the enemies because besides the bosses, they do respawn for the most part, which makes the survival and atmosphere of Code Veronica that much more fascinating. Now let's move on from the freezing temperatures and into the fiery savanna of Africa and buried civilizations in Resident Evil 5. And Big Daddy Albert Wesker is here too, of course. If I had to describe Resident Evil 5's atmosphere and style, it's a fine wine mix of Temple of Doom that met the love child of Black Hawk Down and Terminator Salvation. It's got that just wartime tint to it, and of course a bunch of treasure to be found in the underground parts. RE5 is action-packed, but still a horror story since, well, war itself is horror. I mean, you gotta remember that the bioweapons in this franchise were originally designed for war. It was just that original trilogy era where Umbrella's plans were foiled due to infighting and egos from their own personnel. With that in mind, the more warlike approach, so to speak, to RE5 isn't mutually exclusive to more quieter moments. I think the quote-unquote mansion reveal moment for this game is where Chris and Sheva first enter the opening of the buried kingdom of the Nidpaya. Sorry if I mispronounced that. You feel like you're being watched every second in these ruins of that ancient kingdom. Now, from here in this kingdom, there's a labyrinth of plaga foes, death traps, memories lost to the aging of time, and the hidden origin of the progenitor virus itself. Just look at how Chrissy Poo here refers to the progenitor virus. Keeping in mind with the wartime theme, the horror that comes with that also pairs with tragedy, exploring the infected ruins of the modern-day Nipaya tribe's villages is tragic since so much life was lost here, as well as for the people in Kijuju and the neighboring cities. It makes the build-up to battling Wesker and Trisol that much better, as well as saving Jill. The chaotic atmosphere of Kijuju is such a thrill ride of adrenaline and panic, as there's multiple times you can be swarmed by hostiles and separated from your partner. That same feeling extends to the oil factory and the mines. Then there's the marshlands, which brings us to a quieter, more reserved atmosphere, but you still feel like you're being watched. That section where Chris and Sheva have to take the boat around the swamp is one of my favorites. It's a one-and-done segment, but it builds off of the lake in RE4 quite nicely and lets you remember that the setting is in the wildlands of Africa. Now, the Tricell ship that the final act of RE5 takes place on before the volcano may forego the African setting for a ship, since it feels like RE games take place on more ships than mansions, but I see that Tricell ship as the quote-unquote laboratory part of the game. It's more cramped, enemies are tougher, and the setting you're accustomed to in the major parts of the game are now gone. And hell, the ship gave us this badass Chris Redfield line that reaffirmed why we love him. Every man should want to be a captain of his own ship, huh? I also want to bring up the atmospheres of RE5's kick-ass bonus campaigns. The first being Desperate Escape, where we get the legendary Josh Stone and MILF Valentine herself, the Lockpick Master, battling through the hardest elements of RE5's campaign, but on virus-infused steroids. Like, playing Desperate Escape on the hardest difficulty is a true beast of its own. I found this cool secret area in Desperate Escape and towards the kind of the beginning part that is easy to miss if you backtrack during the first part of the canyon battle. The war-torn vibe of RE5 is to the max here, and it's fun going through it two-player. Then we get more of MILF Valentine and the Lost in Nightmares campaign. I'll just describe the atmosphere here like this. We get a wonderful love letter to RE1's Spencer Mansion, complete with a stellar fixed camera reference if you interact with the front door a couple times. The fact they included that along with the other homages is icing on the cake, and Resident Evil is known for cake. Lost in Nightmares also has these claustrophobic tunnels underneath where you battle the Executioner clones, except all of your weapons are removed. It's hectic, dangerous, and so much fun in co-op, since it's essentially a giant puzzle in order to win. And it feels like that one tunnel section with Lisa, Trevor, and RE1, although this time both Chris and Jill get to work together in tandem. Before I move on to the next entry, I gotta add that the main menu theme for RE5 is phenomenal, and evokes a feeling of history in the franchise since so much has been building up to this game, and the music is mysterious as much as it lures you in to battle the challenges in the game. Good stuff. Next, let's talk about Revelations 2 with Claire and Barry Burton battling She-Wesker and a bunch of ex-Soviets. This game takes a more brutal approach up front with its gore. All the enemies are visibly disfigured and generally look like nightmares that walked out of experiments done in a dangerous, dastardly prison. This one takes place before RE6, so instead of having bioweapons that look like they're ready for mass warfare, the bioweapons in Revelations 2 look stitched together and hell-bent on rageful chaos. That, along with the stranded feel of Sea and Island's decayed settlement, is truly unique in the series. From the prison, to the villages, the sewers, the factory, the mines, and to that dark forest that seemingly never ends, the setting of Rev 2 is like a distant memory or dream you can't remember fully. And with the structure of the game's plot, that being the 6-month time difference between Claire and Barry's episodes, this might be one of the longest infected settings in the franchise. You can really feel that time passing when going through the derelict city as Barry and Natalia. It's cold, desolate, and genuinely feels haunted. That idea of a distant memory fits the atmosphere of the game and that gigantic tower looming over everything on the island. However, by the time you're playing as those two, the tower's top half has been destroyed, which really makes you wonder what happened during Claire's campaign. I describe Sea Island as if Raccoon City was never bombed. This place that was once abundant with people is now no longer a war zone. It's just empty remains of a place that once was. That in of itself is a different kind of horror, a more psychological one that fits with Rev 2's themes of Franz Kafka's work. Going around the game and finding blue imprints of Kafka's actual sketches make you feel like you're losing your own mind. So, Revelations 2 has one area in particular that homages a scene from Code Veronica. Remember that eerie hanging doll I mentioned earlier? Well, during the entrance to Alex Wesker's tower as Barry, you stumble across demented notes and equally demented, bloody, and dismembered dolls hanging around for what feels like forever. A similar scene happens later on, right before the final battle, but it's not only terrifying set dressing, but it also shows how insane Alex Wesker is. She may not be as memorable as the Albert Wesker we all know, although I'd say she was equally as screwed up. Revelations 2 may not have the sweeping detective show plot or the intense scale of the first Revelations game, however it carves up its own identity by allowing us to visit another nightmare as classic characters with a fresh perspective and cool gameplay. And revisiting classic characters is what makes Resident Evil appealing for me. Now let's talk about my personal favorite in the series, RE6. The art style in this game still has that video gamey look to it, while not looking too realistic, which is how I like my games. It has style. That ties into the atmosphere of RE6, because with the 4 campaigns in mind, it truly feels like you're uncovering a web of plot, a large plot, through multiple perspectives, aka playthroughs. Plus, the threat of bioweapons feels larger than ever because these freaks of nature are now deliberate weapons built for warfare like their original intention. However, this time they have qualities from almost every previous virus in the franchise. With that in mind, going from the hectic chaos of Tall Oaks in California to the absolute winter warfare of Adonia, and to the horrific final battle in Lanxing, China, is a Resident Evil experience like none other, and truly feels like a love letter to all the previous entries in the series when looked at as a whole. I discussed more about RE6 and my Beauty of RE6 story and style video from last year, so I'll stay on track of just the atmosphere for this video. RE6 has a dreamy aesthetic to it with its art style that has really aged well, and is full of exuberant, vibrant colors complemented by gut-rushing music. It really feels like for once in the franchise the apocalypse might actually occur, and unraveling Carla Rodami's plot against the world makes for an adventure so big that it incorporates several unique atmospheres. The secret facility in that mansion in Langxing is a real highlight. When you break out of containment as Mr. Jake, you're met with a labyrinth of white sanitized walls and blinding lights and a medical facility that's clearly made only for a bioweapon enhancement. And I gotta say, after playing the first Dino Crisis, there's a few parts of it that reminded me of this facility in RE6, including some of the more industrial areas later on in Dino Crisis that you kinda see in that big lava facility in RE6 later on. Dino Crisis is another one that has great atmosphere, and here in RE6 you even get to fight a few dinosaur-inspired enemies. Would you look at that? Moving on, this facility turns out to be connected to a mansion I assume Carla herself was using as headquarters. This is some classic RE stuff right here, as you navigate the walls with wonderfully unique and sometimes eerie architecture while having to solve puzzles and dodge enemies. I'll just let the scenery of this mansion play for itself. Gorgeous stuff, huh? Gorgeous stuff, huh? This extends to the rest of Langxing as a city where you feel overwhelmed by enemies, or sometimes the more reserved and quiet moments can catch you off guard. Battling through the street market as Leon feels like a classic cramped area with foes you can't just destroy easily. It's like a maze in of itself. Then as Chris, that battle with the giant snake throughout the apartments has so much verticality to it that it feels fresh to replay every time. And witnessing Chris lose yet another team to a bioweapon makes you want to get to the bottom of everything as much as Chris himself does. Then when playing as Ada or Jake, you get to encounter each other on the river battle with the sinking restaurant on a ship. Here you get to admire the skyline of a city based off of Hong Kong, while also seeing just how much sheer destruction has been caused by the C virus. One of the most terrifying moments in all of Resident Evil is seeing that C virus warhead hit the city as tens of thousands are tragically infected as blue dust overwhelms the streets. Whether you're playing as Leon and having to navigate the infected chaos on ground, or playing as Ada in the chopper and seeing the chaos from a bird's-eye view, it's such a gnarly and horrific event in the series. And I'd say that RE6 is full of moments like that. You see it in Tall Oaks as well, which is pretty much Raccoon City 2.0. Then that entire battle across Adonia, it comes across as insanely destructive since Carla was using that civil war as just a means to find Jake. The quiet moments of the Simmons family catacombs or the outskirts of Adonia and the snow feel endless in such an unnerving way, as you're just surrounded by darkness and who knows what's out there looking around. If you haven't already, I'd advise replaying RE6 in the lens of a big celebration of all things Resident Evil. And I do want to bring up the main menu theme of RE6. It feels ominous, and like something is just about to creep up and overtake you in its madness. And that kind of fits the plot of the game and the aesthetic of the main menu, that dark purple of all the webs, like you're uncovering that giant plot through the lens of multiple characters. And I even say that all the other menu themes for RE6's other modes are a lot of fun too. They take on more vibrant and energetic vibes, but still, just the main menu itself is such a great theme. Well, that about wraps up this video. Thank you guys for watching, and be sure to let me know your favorite atmospheres from across the Resident Evil series. I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Until next time, be sure to check out my other Resident Evil videos. I think you like them. I put a lot of heart into them. Until then, take care, make sure to save, and I've been Mr. Tiger Drop Films. I'll see ya in the next one.
Thanks.
Come on!
Okay, thanks. Go, 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 go. Come on, come on. Wait, thanks.
Thanks. Come on! Wait! Go! Thanks.